On a dark night, August 8, 1963, a Royal Mail train was racing from Glasgow to London. Inside one of its carriages were bags stuffed with cash, worth approximately £67 million today, or about 800 Indian rupees crore. The train's driver, Jack Mills, was pushing the engine through the darkness at full speed. Suddenly, at a remote crossing, the signal light turned red. This was unusual at this hour and location. Red signals rarely mattered. Without hesitation, Jack Mills hit the brakes, bringing the train to a stop on the quiet track. For a moment, silence filled the air, but behind that calm lay a master plan. The most audacious heist of the century, where the train itself would be stolen. Sounds like a story from a movie, but this was real life. Months earlier, Bruce Reynolds, the mastermind, had gathered a group of notorious criminals in London to plan a daring operation. With secret information from a senior Royal Mail security officer, whose identity remains unknown, Reynolds learned about a special carriage called the HVP, or high-value packages. On certain days, this carriage carried enormous sums of money, and the plan was to steal it. Although Bruce Reynolds and his team were experienced criminals, they had no prior experience robbing trains. So, they enlisted another gang from London, the South Coast Raiders, who had previously pulled off train heists. Gradually, the team grew to over 15 men. They vowed to execute the robbery without firing a single shot. On August 7, 1963, at 6:50 p.m., the train departed Glasgow Central Station, bound for London. It had 12 carriages and 72 postal staff, who sorted and distributed mail at stations along the route without stopping the train. Parcels were dropped off as the train passed, using a system where staff inside the carriage caught bags from elevated racks at each station. The HVP carriage, the target of the heist, was not yet attached. It was parked safely at Neen Valley Station and contained millions in cash due to the bank holiday weekend. Security measures had been installed on most HVP carriages years earlier, but by chance, the carriage scheduled for the robbery had no alarm system. An insider tip Reynolds' team had received proved invaluable. At Bridgego Bridge, the robbers forced open the HVP carriage, tied up 5 postal staff, and began transferring the cash. The 128 bags of notes, £1, £5, and 10 shilling denominations, weighed nearly 2 tons. Using a human chain, they loaded 120 bags into an Austin Lodestar truck, leaving 8 behind due to time constraints. 2 Land Rovers were used to mislead any witnesses. After a 45-minute drive, they reached a rural hideout about 43 kilometers away near Oakley. There, they celebrated, even playing Monopoly using real cash. Their joy was short-lived, however. Police had already begun searching the area, alerted by witness statements and the tied-up postal staff. The gang quickly shifted their plans, dividing the stolen £2.5 million among themselves and their helpers. They carefully erased fingerprints from the hideout, leaving one person in charge of burning it later, but he fled without doing so. Helicopters hovered over Buckinghamshire, patrol cars scoured the area, and national media reported the heist. The police offered a £10,000 reward for information. A local neighbor reported unusual activity the morning of August 8th, leading the police to raid the hideout, a leather slate farmhouse rented 3 months earlier. Inside, police found empty money bags, mail, a truck, and fingerprints. Some fingerprints were left on the Monopoly board the robbers had played with real cash. These prints became the key breakthrough, matching records at Scotland Yard. Within days, police arrested 14 of the 16 gang members. Only 2 escaped: the replacement train driver, whose real identity remains unknown, and the senior Royal Mail officer who had tipped off Reynolds. The court declared it the heist of the century, sentencing nearly all gang members to 30 years in prison. Bridgego Bridge became famously known as the Train Robbers Bridge, a nickname that persists to this day. Jack Mills, the 58-year-old driver, never returned to work due to his injuries and passed away 7 years later from shock-related complications. The Great Train Robbery remains one of the most perfectly planned and daring heists in history.